morning, traders. I'm Emily Advani, the CEO of the Investment Banking Institute and your host here at NewsWare's Trade Talk. Joining me is trading anchor Bill Olson, who brings more than 30 years of institutional trading experience to our program. At Trade Talk, we provide the facts, themes, and trading ideas for the day ahead. Today is Wednesday, April 30th. We close out a wild month after stocks hit a solid stride yesterday. This as investors continue to navigate tariff talks and corporate earnings. The Dow advanced 300 points or 0.75%. The S&P 500 gained 32 points or more than 0.5%. The Nasdaq jumped 95 points or also more than 0.5%. Bill, let's get into today's action with what is happening in the markets this morning.
Hi, yes. Good morning, Emily. Listen, I'm watching the S&Ps. We're low. We're down 0.52%, about 0.5%. That is a little concerning. Markets really focused on earnings today. But this morning on the economic front, we get the first quarter GDP numbers. Now, that's going to be closely monitored. Now, it's expected to drop, sharply. The expectations are for growth of 0.4% in Q1. I can tell you, I think it comes in better. I think it comes in more like 1.4%, which would be a huge benefit to the markets. Because, there had to have been a lot of stockpiling going into in the first quarter ahead of the tariffs. So I just believe that a print of 0.4 is a little bit too pessimistic at this point in time. Overnight, China did release its factory orders, but the factory orders were for April. Okay, so China's factory orders, the manufacturing PMI came in at 49. That's under 50. That shows contraction. That's below, the March reading, which was 50.5. And that's not good for the Chinese manufacturing, but that's the result of the tariffs. Earnings, very key. I see Caterpillar, Caesars, GE Healthcare, Generac, and Visa. They're all trading higher after their earnings releases. And also Visa and GE Healthcare, they announced big buybacks. I'll get to more in a little bit later. After the bell today, you got earnings reports from Microsoft, Meta Platforms, Qualcomm, KLAC, and Robinhood, HOOD. This a total of 50 S&P 500 companies are scheduled to report earnings today. So, we got a lot to focus on the earnings front. And, you look at the other, data that came out, the Eurozone GDP, that came in better than expected as well. So that's going to be a key one then. That GDP comes out at 8:30 this morning. But let's take a quick look at what's happening overseas. We get the German DAX. It's up 0.53% or 117 points. It's really being supported by corporate earnings and the potential of easing of trade tensions. London, the FTSE is up 11 points or 0.13%. Focus on corporate earnings. FTSE, the CAC in Paris is up 44 points or 0.59%. The French economy grew by 0.1% quarter on quarter in Q1. That's rebounded from the 0.1% contraction earlier. Then we're turning our attention over to Asia, and we saw the Nikkei. The Nikkei gained 205 points. That's 0.5%. Listen, the sentiment is positive on a trade deal being announced with the U.S. in the near term. Hong Kong, the Hang Seng finished higher by 111 points at 0.51% with positive action in consumer, property, and tech sectors. China, the Shanghai Composite fell 0.23%. Really was due to that the manufacturing purchasing managers index, the PMI, dropping to 49 from 50.5. I mean, it showed a sharp drop. And then we're taking a look at oil. Oil remains volatile. You got WTI at $60.01. You got Brent at $63.65. They're both down about around 0.7%. Last night you had the API stockpile inventories come in. They showed stockpiles inventories rose by 3.8 million barrels for the week ending April 25th. That's not good. And then the Chinese manufacturing sector, that weak performance, that's also a hangover on oil prices. This morning we get the EIA data. That's going to be the key one because that's the official data for the stockpiles. But that's what I have for you in terms of morning market update to report, Emily.
Bill, a slew of key information coming out today. And, you did mention the GDP report. We will get to economic reports in just a moment so that we have a full handle of what is going on that front. Before we get there, we do want to turn to earnings action. 50 S&P 500 companies, as you pointed out, are releasing today. How do you keep track of all of that information? It's easy when you have NewsWare because there's an alert specifically for earnings releases, and you're able to track all of this information, dive into what has been released, and see everything as it hits the tape and gather details on that front. So let's start with earnings action, Bill. What is going on there?
Visa, delivered a beat of 8 cents on higher revenue. Caterpillar, ticker CAT, they missed by 10 cents, but they did it on higher revenue. You look at Caterpillar this morning, and it's up 3.67%, though. GE Healthcare, ticker GEHC, Grace Edward, Henry Charlie, they beat by 10 cents. They did that on higher revenue. That stock's up 5.9% this morning. Starbucks, ticker SBUX, they missed by 14 cents. They did that on lower revenue. That stock's down a little over 9% this morning. Upcoming after the bell, we got Qualcomm, ticker QCOM, Quinton, Charlie, Oscar, Mary. Their EPS is $2.82. Expected move is 6.64%. Then you got Meta Platforms. Their ticker META, Michael Edward, Tom Apple. Their EPS is $5.21. Expected move is 7.69%. And rounding out the big ones is Microsoft, ticker MSFT, Mr. Softy. EPS is $3.20. Expected move is 4.66% when they release this afternoon after the market closes today, Emily.
Certainly a number of big names there. You'll be catching those using that earnings alert. Speaking of alerts, you have an economic alert. You can see all of the latest economic indicators coming out as they hit the tape. You did mention the GDP, along with, it's a big week for employment data. So give us a full rundown of what we should be watching when it comes to the day's economic events.
At 8:15 a.m. this morning, we get the ADP employment report. Then later we get the first quarter GDP report. Then at 10 a.m. we get personal incomes and outlays, the PCE report. Then at 10:30 we get the EIA oil stockpiles report. Like I said earlier, the GDP reading is expected to come in at plus 0.4%. I think it's going to come in a little higher than that. I think it's going to come in a little better. But then you get the PCE report coming in. Expectations for the core month over month to be at plus 0.1%. Expectations for the annual core is plus 2.6, which would be a drop compared to the because of 2.8%. So that would be positive. And that's one you got to keep an eye on. The oil stockpile report, that's going to be a big one as well, because another buildup in oil inventories would create more weakness in oil and break that $60 level on oil prices. But we'll have to wait and see when those reports come out today, Emily.
Bill, the information that you've listed so far seems like that is enough to be watching today, but yet you're still following other types of data, news, and information, headlines coming out of different sectors and segments. You're looking at merger news, guidance news, shareholders meetings, buyback news, catalyst calls, all using your NewsWare. Also using your NewsWare, you group your stocks together like your FANG stocks and your Dow 30 stocks. So, Bill, what else do you see is possibly moving the markets today?
I'm just I'm looking at the tape this morning, and I'm looking at my Dow stocks. I got 19 lower, 10 higher, and 1 unchanged. I'm looking at my FANG stocks. There's always weakness, about 1% in the FANG stocks this morning. We're looking at some of the news behind it, the tape, like Amazon. Amazon is seeking supplier discounts to limit the Trump tariff squeeze. Is headline out there. There's a headline out there yesterday that Trump called Jeff Bezos of Amazon because there was talk of a line item on Amazon bills called the Trump tariff. Well, Trump tariff tax. Oh my gosh, that would just destroy his economic plan, because then everybody would realize, the consumer is paying for these tariffs, which is not something Trump wants to let people know. But he called Bezos, and Bezos said that's not true. It's just a rumor. So there's no foundation for that. There probably was a foundation, but it's not going to happen. Then we're talking about Google. Google owns Waymo, and Toyota and Waymo are going to collaborate on autonomous driving technologies. That's positive. Meta Platforms yesterday, they announced that it's launching a new Meta AI app. That's kind of positive. In terms of Dow Jones 30 stocks, NVIDIA, Trump's officials are eyeing changes to Biden's AI chip export rule. And Boeing came out there this morning and said that the 787 Dreamliner fleet has already surpassed 1 billion passengers. That's kind of positive. In terms of merger news, RGLS, Richard Grace, Larry Sam, they're being bought out by Novartis in a $1.7 billion deal, or $7 per share, RGLS. In terms of guidance news, GE Healthcare, they cut their full year 2025 adjusted EPS view to $3.90 to $4.10. Street estimate had it at $4.69. A little concerning. Caterpillar, they see Q2 tariffs impacting up to $300 million on costs. And Supermicro, SMCI, Sam Michael Charlie India, they cut their Q3 adjusted EPS view to 29 cents to 31 cents. Street estimate had it at 54 cents. That's a big downtick. In terms of shareholders meetings going on today, Wynn Resorts, ticker WYNN, William Yellow, Nancy, they're holding a virtual shareholders meeting today, starts at 8 a.m. Moderna, ticker MRNA, Michael Richard, Nancy Apple, they're holding a shareholders meeting today at 8 o'clock this morning. And Fluor Technologies, ticker FLR, Frank, Larry, Richard, they're holding a virtual shareholders meeting today, starts at 8:30 a.m. In terms of buyback news, Visa, ticker V, they announced a 30 billion share buyback plan. GE Healthcare, GEHC, they announced a 1 billion share buyback plan. That's positive. Catalyst calls, Citibank announced a 30-day positive catalyst watch on Kingsoft Cloud. That's ticker KC, Kilo Charlie. And that's what I have for you about news hitting the tape this morning, Emily.
This is the type of data that NewsWare delivers daily. It's factual, it's market moving, and our alerting functions bring it to your attention as it happens. Go to www.newsware.com now and sign up for the trial and see for yourself the benefits that professional Newswire delivers. We've now made it to that time of the show for the Trade Talk pick of the day. Bill, you're sifting through earnings. You're awaiting some key economic data. You're following all of these headlines. So what is your pick of the day today?
I'm just going to stick with Meta Platforms, ticker META. Earnings are after the bell. EPS is $5.21. Expected move is 7.69%. Yesterday's call volume, 154,000 calls versus 74,000 calls. That's positive. Open interest, 1.1 million versus 825,000. That's positive. Major brokers have been lowering price targets on the stock, but they remain positive. Overweight, buy recommendations, left and right. And now any comments on the lawsuit that's going on in order to break up Meta will concern me, but I do think that if I can get in, the stock at the 538, 539 level, it could turn out to be positive. So that's, I got to wait for that, let's say 538.50 level. If it reaches that level, then I'm going to pick up some Meta. But that's my pick today. Meta Platforms, 538 level, Emily.
Meta is to close out April, being patient about that entry price and awaiting their earnings after the bell. A similar strategy that you used yesterday with your pick of the day. We did hear that pick throughout the show. So we'll do a recap on that in just a moment. But first, let's take a look at the current breaking headlines that have hit the tape in our hot off the press segment. Bill, take it away.
CFG, Charlie, Frank Grace, Citizens Financial, their CFO, John Woods, is going to depart. TSMC stock gets a Trump boost. Headline hit the tape. WDC, Western Digital, up 11% after Q3 results. Wingstop, ticker WING, lowers its 2025 domestic same-store sales view to 1% from low to mid-single digits. Stellantis, STLA, they pulled their guidance, saying that the environment's too uncertain. DeepSeek releases new math AI model. Humana beats profit estimates on lower than expected costs. Google CEO is going to take the stand at the search antitrust trial today. That's all I'm seeing this morning, Emily.
Okay, Bill, before we get to trading on this Wednesday, let's do that check-in on yesterday's pick of the day. We heard you mention it throughout the show. It was Visa, ticker V. You did give us a look at their earnings during your earnings rundown. They did report a Q2 EPS of $2.76. That was 8 cents better than the analyst estimates. As you told us, they did beat on revenue. Revenue for the quarter came in at $9.6 billion, getting by that estimate of $9.55 billion. And then Even though the CEO mentioned that their profit did fall, the revenue rose 9%, as pointed out by the CEO that consumer spending is resilient. You also told us about that $30 billion repurchase program. Big program there. We saw some decent gains in the stock. So, Bill, how did your call work out?
Worked out fabulous. I mean, listen, the stock opened up at 338.50, then fell to 336.46. Remember, I said 336.75. So it 25 cents below that essentially is what it fell to. And then it closed at 341.52. Then the earnings came out. It hit a high of $350. So 336.75 to 350. That's a big win. That beats the 1%. So yeah, Visa, ticker V, was a winner yesterday. Emily.
Solid call, solid strategy, and we will check in with you tomorrow about today's meta pick of the day. Bill, thank you as always for your expert insight. Join us back here tomorrow and each weekday morning at NewsWare's Trade Talk when we provide the facts, themes, and trading ideas for the day ahead. Again, I'm your host, Emily Advani, here with trading anchor Bill Olson. Traders, you know what to do. Let's go out there and make some green.